What up, watch peeps? I've been a vocal proponent of just enjoying watches at arm's length because this is 99% of how I interact with them. I don't take much joy in the little things that separate $500 watches from several $1,000 watches like decorated movements and such. I can appreciate these things, but they're not that important to me. A great example of this is the hands on the Grand Seiko GMT I had. They were insane under magnification. The brushing, they had polished chamfers and the sharpest transitions I maybe have ever seen. But I didn't care because they were ugly ass Dauphine hands and I can't see those things when I check the time. I'd rather have a really cool handset that's less finely finished. So what types of details separate AliEx brands from Microbrands? Let's find out. I'm Pete, and we are Chillin' with Watches. Wrist check. I am wearing the Christopher Ward Aquitaine Hulk. This watch is pretty killer. They finally got that micro adjust clasp down to 16 millimeters, man, and it makes all the difference on these bracelets. But we're here today to talk about the difference between AliEx brands and micro brands. Now, we're all aware of the concept of diminishing returns, where every minute refinement costs more and more to produce. Now, Pagani watches are a great example of this concept because these are like $100-ish watches, and those returns are obvious and they drop off pretty quickly. But the difference between a $100 watch and a $500 watch, yeah, might be more subtle. And the difference between a $500 watch and a $2,000 watch, even more subtle than that. You know, both could have really nice polished chamfers, but only a trained eye might be able to pick out, you know, the slightly sharper transitions or the finer grain of the brushing. For some people, these refinements are everything. And what I've got here today is two sets of watches. Each set has a Pagani, a San Martin, and a micro brand. And we're going to look at the differences between these three price points and levels of watch finishing. What we've got in this first set is the Pagani Daytona-esque Mecha Quartz chronograph. These run about 90 bucks. All these prices are before any coupons, codes, or sales, so you can get them lower than this. This is the San Martin Quartz dress watch, runs about $114. And lastly, I have the Traska commuter, which retails for $565. Now, some of the details that differentiate these three watches are pretty obvious. Starting with this Pagani, you'll see we have a fully polished case. There's no brush to polish transitions to speak of that need to be sharp and clean, and there's certainly no polished chamfers on the corners. We just kind of have one flat surface going right into another. It's polished all the way around. Moving just up just a little bit to the San Martin, and I think this is true for like $100 to $300 San Martins. Now you start to get some brushing in here, polishing on the top, so you have to get a nice clean transition, but you'll see there's no polished chamfer there. It's just kind of a 90-degree corner, again, one flat surface into another, where you have to move up almost 5 times in price to start getting the kind of details like really fine brushing on the case sides and tops with polished chamfers in between. Now, some of the other things that differentiate these watches we can see from this view would be the bezels, for instance. You'll see how this one has a really nice circular brushing on that 45-degree angle, and then it's polished, and then I think there's even brushing again on the side. So you get all these really neat kind of light play transitions there. Whereas the bezel on this one, San Martin, you'll see it does have the 3 surfaces, being the top, 45 on the side, but they're polished all the way around. Again, I think that's pretty much the same when you're looking at the bezel on the Pagani, brushed all the way around. Now, bracelets are one of the things that can kind of separate these kind of watches too. Here you just have a pretty much standard faux 3-link oyster bracelet. This one didn't come with a bracelet, so can't compare that. But again, moving up to something like the Traska, and you get fully articulating bracelets that have scratch-resistant coatings to them. And, you know, something about it just feels more silky in hand. Now, I know one of the things a lot of people think comes with the difference in more expensive watches is thinness, and it is true to some extent. You know, we get like an 11.1 millimeter case with the Traska, but I mean, this is a quartz, so kind of not a great comparison. This comparison will make more sense in our next batch of watches, but we'll take a look anyway. 10.7, so, you know, I would say that's pretty comparable. and 11.9 here. With this one's a chronograph. So, I mean, I think considering this is a chronograph, this is a quartz, and this is a mechanical, thickness, not really an issue in the difference between these three watches. Now, this next group is really interesting because the differences are very subtle. What we have first up is the Pagani Spirit. These go for about $125. Moving up just a little bit, we have the San Martin Vintage Diver. These go for $215-ish. And lastly, I have the Seals Sea Storm, which retail for $650. Now, what's interesting is you'll see none of these watches have fully polished cases. Even the $125 Pagani Spirit has really nice brushing on the case sides and the lug tops, with really nice even polished chamfers down those corners. And if we look close, you'll see the transitions here are not too shabby. The brushing is not the best, but the transitions are pretty clean. Now, moving up to what you get with the San Martin, and these things are almost shocking in what they can do for their price. You'll see a little nicer brushing. I don't know if you can see the consistency and the smoothness of the grain of the brushing, but it is a little nicer than what was on the Pagani. You also have really nice polished chamfers, and you'll see how they kind of change in thickness. They fade, they taper, really beautifully done. And another really interesting thing with this that you don't see on many AliEx brand watches is the brushing from the top of the lugs is matched to the brushing on the top of the end links, both straight. Very nice, very pretty. The Seals has, I think, fantastic finishing, but you're moving up to like 3 times the price of the San Martin to get this. And again, you have really nice brushing, this time vertically, which I do understand to be a cheaper option to horizontal brushing. But, you know, again, it could also be a design choice. But you have beautiful chamfers that taper, again, just like the San Martin. But interestingly, the circular brushing on the top of the lugs does not match up to the vertical brushing on the bracelet. We can do a quick comparison of the Seals bezel to that of the Pagani. You'll see the Seals is brushed on this big wide 45 degree, polished on this big wide 45 degree angle. I think this one is polished all the way around tops, sides, and the angle. Whereas on the Pagani, I believe you do have brushing on that edge, with then polishing on the 45 and brushed again on the top side. Now you'll see the grain of the brushing is vertical on that top, and it's at a bit of an angle. It's kind of running this way, so it's not matched up to the rest of the brushing on the watch. They've, you got circular brushing on the lugs, vertical brushing on the top of the bezel that's a little bit sideways, and then again vertical brushing on the bracelet that is, running straight up and down. So inconsistencies on the brushing, but decent brushing, and there is some brushing. So you do get the transitions that kind of make these things play with the light and make them look a little more expensive. Looking at the brushing on the Seals, you'll see we have circular brushing on top of the case, and then again we have vertical brushing on the bracelet. So the two grains of brushing don't really line up here either. And to be fair, I've seen thousands of dollar watches that have that same issue, but you're more likely to find a consistent brushing like the San Martin on more expensive watches. Now, one of the other things we should talk about here is movements. With the Pagani Spirit, you're getting your NH35, which we all know is about a $30 movement. I'm sure they pay less for them in bulk. And for $215, the San Martin gets you, this one has a YN55, which is basically a Chinese ETA 2824 clone. Seems to be running just fine. It's accurate, and it's a clean runner. Long term, I don't know. It's not proven to me. We'll see. Only time will tell. And the Seals runs a Miyota 9039. That would probably be the most premium movement of this group. Last thing we want to look at here would be the sapphire crystals. Now, all of these have sapphire, but you're going to get AR coating on either of these two, which you can see the blue reflection there on the San Martin. I believe this has clear AR, so you're not going to actually see it, but you are not going to get any AR coating on this sapphire crystal here. And it's not double domed either. You see, it's just a single dome. I don't believe case thickness plays any significant role in this set of watches either. The Spirit coming in at about 13 with the NH35. The Seals running the thinner Miyota has a pretty similar thickness, 12.9. And well, this one running the YN55 comes in at about 13. So for me, you know, the thickness on all these watches is close enough that it's not really a point of contention. So those are just a few of the details that are easy to cover in a 10-minute video. But as you can see, sometimes those differences can be really subtle. You'll see brushing and polishing, but you got to take a little closer look at the grain of the brushing to see what kind of differences really exist. Now, if I was to try and pick which is my bargain, what is the best buy of all the watches on this table, I'm going to say it is this Pagani Spirit. You're getting a 0 for originality on the design. And like I said, the grains of the brushing don't all match, but there is brushing and it's pretty decent. And there is polished chamfering and there is nice transitions. There's a fully articulating bracelet on this one as well. Just everything you get taken as a package. Minus design, I'm talking pure spec sheet, this would probably be the best bargain on the table. My favorite watch on this table, well, that's going to be the Trasker Commuter. This is a top 3 overall for me, potentially the #1 spot. I've only ever really dabbled in entry-level luxury watches with the likes of Tudor and such. I know most people move up market or whatever, but that's just not me. The upside's just not there. If you're buying these watches with financial considerations, that's different. That's not being a watch enthusiast. That's being an investor, which is fine, but it's not what we're talking about here. If you're buying these watches just because you need that brand name, well, if I'm being honest, that might be the only reason I've ever bought a luxury watch. All right, before I let you guys go, sneaker check, wear my Jordan 1 mids, and that's it. I'm out. If it's not too much trouble, please like, subscribe, and come back next time. Peace.